He is far from me, Menachem, the Comforter, returned my soul to me. So on this pasuk, the Medrash says, which is a Parsha Aleph, Ois Nun Aleph, in Medrash and Rambam, Ma Shmoi Shel Melech HaMashiach. What is the name of the King Mashiach? So if you remember the Sanhedrin, we started off Ma Shmoi and then Rashi Shel Mashiach. Here we're going to see the exact same record from the Medrash. Ma Shmoi Shel Melech HaMashiach. What is the name of the King Mashiach? Rabbi Abba Bar Kahana Amar Hashem Shmoi. Shneimar V'zeh Shmoi Asher Yikru Hashem Tzidkeinu. So we're going to skip a few lines. So the first we see is Hashem's name. The Mepharshim say that Mashiach is going to be so thoughtful to Hashem that he's going to be called on Hashem's name because he is so thoughtful to the Eibishter. The next name we're going to see a few lines down by the small little Pei Dalet. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi Amar. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi Amar. Amar is after the name, so they're coming to argue. He says, Tzamach Shemai. His name is Tzamach. Ne'emar, Hinei ish Tzamach Shemai, U'mitachtav Yitzmach. So he holds Tzamach is the name. The Medrash continues, Rabbi Yudan Shem, Rabbi Aivu Amar, coming to argue, says, Menachem Shemai. Shne'emar, Kiracha Mimeni Menachem, which is the pasuk we started off. There's a machlek. Amar Rabbi Chanina. Rabbi Chanina says no. Like Liga, they're not arguing. Samach, Amanachem, the ones who say Samach Menachem, they're not arguing. How come? Chushman of the day to Chushman of the day. They have the same gematria. Who Menachem, who Samach. So the one who said Menachem, I want to point out, he said Menachem stam in an abstract way. He didn't say who specifically it is. He just said the name of Moshiach is Menachem stam. Samach stam. Medrash continues, V'hada Messiah Lahada, the Rabbi Yudan B'Shem Rabbi Aivu. And we're now going to give a siyua, a support, to the opinion of Rabbi Yudan B'Shem Rabbi Aivu, who said Menachem Shmoi. And it goes on and tells the story of Menachem ben Chizkiah. It says, Uv the Hava B'chad Baranash, the Hava Kar Radeh. And it talks about a farmer who was with his ox at the time of the Churban Beis HaMikdash. The ox bleated once. The Arab said your basic Mikdash was destroyed. The ox bleated again. It says, Noilad Moshiach. Moshiach was born. And it goes on to tell the story of Menachem ben Chizkiah, which is the time the Churban Bayis changed. Let's turn to page 2, Nun Beis, because we're going to skip the story of Menachem ben Chizkiah, because we're interested right now in the names of Moshiach. And we're going to go down to the line that says Yifret. There's a small pei hey over there. And we should recognize it from Sanhedrin. It says, the day Rabbi Shela Amri, the yeshiva of Rabbi Shela say, Shela Shemoi, Shal Mashiach. Shela is the name of Mashiach. Shneimar Ad Yavai Shela, which is the exact same as our Gemara and Sanhedrin. Shela Kasif. So they have a proof from Pasuk, the name is Shela. The day Rabbi Chanina Amri, Chanina Shemoi. Shneimar Asher Lo Yaten Lahem Chanina. They give a Pasuk. Today Rabbi Yanai Amri, Yinain Shemai. The Chesiv Lefnei Shemesh Yinain Shemai. So till now we see it's all the same names. Here's a name that is not in the Sanhedrin, which we'll explain. The Medrash continues, Rabbi Beiva Sanaguria Amar Nehira Shemai. Shneimar Nohaira Imei Share. Nehira Kasivs. So if we look at the Maharazut, the Maharazav rather, on the top of the daf, Sanaguria Amar, top left. Sanaguria Amar Nohaira Shemei is the Dibra Maskal. Hinei Anurayim, Shekal Elul HaMayrayim, Dershim Ein Shemaisam. Al Shemai Shal Mashiach. We see that all these Amarayim, they're Deirish, a Me'ain of their name, of Mashiach, they're Deirish, a Me'ain of their name, on the name of Mashiach. Ach, Rabbi Beiva Sanaguria, Ein Dershim Ein Shemai. But Rabbi Beiva Sanaguria, his name isn't Nohaira, so why is he saying Nohaira Shemai? So therefore, he gives a pshat as follows. Al Kain Nira. The Tzarech Lema Sanaguria, Shepirshei Sagi Nahar. Sagi Nahar, if you're familiar with Pesachim, it means a lot of light. But Derish Nein Shemai Nehira. And he is Taka, being Derish, his name, to say Nehira Shemai. So when Rabbi Veda Sanaguria says Nehira Shemai, really he's saying on himself his Dirish name Shmoi is what it's saying. Shekenhu Akazim Nehira Ba'akri Nohaira. So we see all these Amoraim, they're saying the name of Moshiach is like the name, like their name. So back into the Medrash, and here's what the Medrash appears like. Rabbi Huda Rabbi Simon Amma, B'Shem Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yitzchak. Hadei Malk Mashiach. This, the King Mashiach. Imin Chayayahu, David Shmei. If he comes from the living, his name is David. Imin Masayahu, David Shmei. If he comes from the maisim, his name is David. Top of page, Nun Gimel. Amar Rabbi Tanchuma. So that's the end of the Rabbanim who said David Shmei. Medrash continues. How do you know David is Mashiach if he comes from a maisim? Because Amar Rabbi Tanchuma. Ani Aimer Tane. I'll give the reason how they know Mashiach will be David if he comes from a maisim, because there's a pasuk. It says in the pasuk, Magdal Yishua's Malkai Ba'isa Chesed L'Mshichei. He does kindness to his Mashiach, to David. And Kasib Kar Elul David Elazar. So he's teaching this pasuk. How did the Rabbanim know Mashiach will be David if from the maisim? Because there's a pasuk.
They put the quote in that place.
Yes, they did. I'm not used to this stuff. But the point is, Rabbi Tanchuma is giving the reason for the Rabbanan. When the Rabbanan said what they said, they didn't give a reason. They didn't quote the pasuk. Comes a generation later, Rabbi Tanchuma, fifth generation, Eretz Tzaddik HaMeira, and gives the reason. As it says in the pasuk, to his Mashiach, LeDavid. So from here we know. So, as we can see, all the names mentioned here, except for Rabbi Beda, Sami Beda, are all in the same Gemara we learned last week in Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin mentioned HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rabbi Hillel says at the top, before the Sugya, Hashem Shmoi, and he gets Shari Le'Madra to say that there's no Moshiach L'Yisrael HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yigaleh, but this HaKadosh Baruch Hu. All the names are in, we don't have Tzemach, we have Menachem in Sanhedrin. As we said, Chush from the day, Chush from the day. There's one name we don't have, and that's Rabbi Veva, Samigera, Amanahir Shmoi. The question is, why is that the only name not mentioned in Sanhedrin, Nehir Shmoi? I believe it's Afshar Laima to say, the Gemara in Sanhedrin wants to come and teach us a lesson. The Gemara in Sanhedrin wants to teach us, Moshiach can come, Simon Achayim, and Simon Amasim. So therefore, they only give names when we learn that these names were said, Simon Achayim, Simon Amasim. Whereas Rabbi Beda Sanagator, who says Nehir Shmoi, we don't learn from that name both Moshiach ben Achayim and Moshiach ben Maisim. Why not? Because who said the name? Only the Rav himself, not his yeshiva. It's not proven from here that there was a Messiah that continued to say the names. Whereas the Rabbi Shel, the Rabbi Chanin, the Rabbi Yanai, they had the yeshivas continuing after. They said it while the Rav was alive, and they claim last week, this Avshalem, they continued to say after he passed away. So the Gemara didn't bring the Nehir Shmoi because it doesn't come to teach us the lesson. I believe it's trying to be taught in Sanhedrin. Mashiach can come both from the living and from the maisim. But there's also, as we know, one other salient difference between the Medrash here and our Gemara in Sanhedrin. The Medrash here fears ois David Shmei, whereas our Gemara fears ois. If Mashiach comes from the living, it's Kugain Rabbeinu Kadosh. If Mashiach comes from the maisim, it's Kugain Daniel. Why doesn't Al Gemara fear ice like here? David Shmei. I believe it's Avshalem to say because Al Gemara teaches the Rebusset the faith. David Shmei, we see Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rabbi Shmuel, David Shmei. So we see there's a Messiah. He learned from his Rebbe that David HaMelech would be Moshiach if Moshiach comes from the maisim. And also we see from here, Rabbi Tanchuma gives a pasuk to the proof. Whereas our Gemara in Sanhedrin appears like, if Moshiach comes from the living, it's Kugain Rabbeinu Kadosh. If Moshiach comes from the maisim, it's Kugain Daniel. That's the Rebusset faith. Why? Because Rab didn't teach us Moshiach and Achayim and maisim. He has a Messiah from his Rebbe who said Daniel. Rab didn't even offer a pasuk why it's Rebbe or why it's Daniel. Rab in Sanhedrin there's always with the Savara Ba'alma that Rebbe and Daniel, Moshiach ben Achayim, Moshiach ben Maisim, because he has a Savara, but they were the Chassid Gamar Hava, they were completely righteous and they suffered. So that is why I believe the Gemara appears always in Sanhedrin with the main Rab instead of this one. We also noted last week there's a machlokes between Bavli and Yerushalmi that Bavli holds David after. Rav says prefers David after, not Moshiach. So you see there's a machlokes of David. Also, as we saw, this method started off. Yirachak remaining affirmation of Nashi in a couple of Aleph says, Ma Shmoi shall Malach HaMashiach. I believe what's being discussed here is not stam who's really Elias Mashiach, and there's a whole machlokes in the generation. My Rosh Hashiva is really Elias Mashiach. Rabbi Shila Amrei, my Rebbe. They're discussing who will be the ultimate redeemer. Ma Shmoi shall Malach HaMashiach. So therefore, when we go back to Sanhedrin, we can see, yes, they were saying that the rabbis were Elias Mashiach, and actually they continue, and they hope that when the angels decide to bring the Ula, it will be Rabbi Shila, it will be Rabbi Yan, it will be Rabbi Hanina. And these are the similarities between Medrash and the Gemara and Sanhedrin. This Medrash is also, if you have the Yerushalmi, we saw the way the Medrash ends up by David Shmei. It mentions the figures, Chaim and maisim. The other names recorded in the Medrash, Tzemach, Menachem, Rabbi Shel, Rabbi Hanina, Rabbi Yanai, it doesn't say Chaim and maisim, it just says stam the name. If you learn this Medrash, perhaps one could come away and say, okay, the only one who holds Moshiach and maisim is is at the end by David Shmei. One might think it's Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Rabbi Shmoi that holds Moshiach and maisim. But we're going to see. I'm about to show you that every single one of these names mentioned holds Moshiach and maisim, and we're going to see. So if a person just learns this measure, they can say it. Only the last one holds Moshiach and maisim. The other ones best didn't discuss it, or the first they don't hold it. But we're going to see now from the Yerushalmi's recording of this sugya that every single Amayr who says a name over it holds Moshiach and Simon and maisim. If you have the Yerushalmi in front of you, brachas. Halacha Dalet near the end. Do you have the photocopy? Seven lines from the bottom. In the middle of the line it says Rabbanan Amri. You see it? Tomorrow, brachas. Yeah. 7 lines from the bottom.
About me.
In the middle of the line it says Rabbanan Amri. So we're gonna now see the Yerushalmi's recording of this sugya. Rabbanan Amri, the Rabbanan say, Ahan Malka Mashiach, this the King Mashiach. Imin Chayaya, who, if he comes from the living, David Shmei, his name is David. Imin the Machaya, if he's from the maisim, who David Shmei, his name is David. Amar Rabbi Tanchuma, again Rabbi Tanchuma is brought. Ana Amras Tame, I will say the reason how they know who Moshiach is min maisim, and he quotes the pasuk, Vaisa Chesed Limshiche LeDavid, because it says in the pasuk he does Chesed to his Moshiach to David. So we see David, we see his Moshiach. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi Amar Tzemach Shmai, and again Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says Tzemach is his name. Rabbi Yudan Braid the Rav Aibu Amar Menachem Shmai. Amar Rabbi Hanina Braid the Rav Aibu V'Leifali Chushman Adin Hu Tzemach U'Menachem, the same Gemachir. Again, remember, the Menachem was Menachem Stam. It wasn't Menachem ben Chizkiah. The Gemara continues, V'da Masayeh Lahu, the Mar Rabbi Yudan Braid the Rav Aibu, and here we're going to give you a support for the opinion of Rabbi Yudan Braid the Rav Aibu, that said Menachem is his name, of the Hava, B'chad Yudai, the Karkaim. And it starts to tell the story of Menachem ben Chizkiah. So we see, this is the same as the Medrash, except for a very salient point. We said the Medrash feared Ois with David Shmei. Here, the Yerushalmi Chav Zechon with David Shmei. What's the nafkamina? The nafkamina is a zoy. The Medrash, you might think, as I said, only the ones at the end who say David Shmei hold Moshiach and the maisim. The others, they never talked about it, or to say even more hard that they don't even hold of it. But now, what did the Yerushalmi just do now? It started off with David Shmei and says, Ahan Malka Moshiach im min Machayahu David Shmei im min Chayahu David Shmei im mi Machayahu David Shmei. It starts off from the beginning. If Moshiach comes from the living, his name is David. If Moshiach comes from a maisim, his name is David. Haka b'mayas kinan. What is the topic over here in the Yerushalmi? The topic is the Feirush. Moshiach, if he comes from the living, and if he comes from a maisim. And what's his name? David. Now look what just happened over here. The Gemara continued and said, Tzemach Shmoi, a Menachem Shmoi. And remember, it says Amar after the name. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi Amar is coming to argue now. He's saying Tzemach Shmoi. He's coming to argue now with David Shmei. Rabbi Yudan, brother of Aidu Amar, is coming to argue Menachem Shmoi. He's coming to argue. Hacha b'mayas kina. We're talking about Moshiach ben Achayim, Moshiach ben Maisim. We're starting off with Moshiach ben Achayim and Maisim. That's the topic of it. And they're saying there's a machlekes b'davar. There's a machlekes in the name. Some people like to say, Yerushalmi says Moshiach comes from Maisim, David Shmei. It's not so cut and dry. We see there's a machlekes b'davar. Some say David, yeah, and some say no, Tzemach. Some say Menachem. In fact, this is Yerushalmi is known for being succinct. When it says Rabbanan Amri, we know from the Medrash it was Rabbi Yehuda or Rabbi Simon. We know the Rabbanan's names. Here it just says Rabbanan Stam. And here it just brings you three names, David, Tzemach, and Menachem. To also be succinct, and not bring all the names recorded in the Medrash, because the Yerushalmi style is to be succinct, but it lets you know there's a machlekes b'davar. And that's the nafkamina between the Yerushalmi and the Medrash. Being that the Yerushalmi starts off David Shmei, with Moshiach comes from Achayim and Maisim, and then tells you there's a machlekes b'davar. So we see the fact that Yerushalmi switched around, flipped the order to start off with saying David Shmei means a zayah. According to the Yerushalmi, it does not change pshat to record the story of the series of names with the Rabbanan first that told about Moshiach ben Achayim and Maisim. Why? Because each one of these people that say a name hold Moshiach, Simon Achayim, and Simon and Maisim. That's what you see by the fact that the Yerushalmi just flipped the order. And remember what we said last week? If you give a pasuk, you mean a Simon and Achayim, Simon and Maisim. So it's very interesting the way the Yerushalmi flipped the order. It does not alter the pshat. Now let's look at the pasuk offered by Rabbi Tanchuma to give the raya how the Rabbanan know David Shmei. Amar Rabbi Tanchuma, Ana Amras Tame. I will say the reason. The Rabbanan didn't give a reason. They said it stuck. He's going to give the reason. Quotes a pasuk. Right? It says in the pasuk, he does kindness to his Moshiach to David. Who knows where that's a pasuk? I'll give you a clue. It says inside. Tehillim. Yudches. Who wrote that particular Tehillim? David himself. Came to us, what do we see? After Lema, L'Halacha is according to Das, Rabbi Tanchuma. If a Rebbe, David Hamelach, darshans a pasuk, a hint, I am Moshiach, he means it's Simon Achayim, and he also means it's Simon Maisim. Because when did David Hamelach say this pasuk? Obviously when he's alive. And Rabbi Tanchuma brings it as a raya that his Mashiach ben Maisim. So it comes to strengthen that which we said last week. When Rabbi Shila and Rabbi Yanam and Rabbi Hanina all gave a pasuk to his darshan to their Talmidim to hint they are Mashiach, they meant that Simon Achayim and Simon Maisim.
Those that say that Yom Hitzlavayis and Kafal is Shel was talking about the day he died.
Okay. He
So
said
right before he dies, he says, I'm Mashiach.
And Bashev also Yichir Malach David Lo'elam. Right by it. In any event, we see if you give a pasuk, it can be understood Simon Achayim and Simon Maisim. So it comes to strengthen that which we said last week about Sanhedrin. That when you say a pasuk to him, to your Mashiach, you mean it Sai while you're alive, and Afshalem, you mean it while you're a mace, because we know Yidrei Shal Mashiach, Yachal Lavai ben Achayim, Yachal Lavai ben Maisim. So Afshalem, the Talmidim had no reason to stop. It became them a Sarah, as we explained last week. The Rav himself hinted his Mashiach by darshaning the pasuk. The Yeshiva Chapdan became their Messiah. They had no reason to stop because they know Mashiach is coming to maisim. Also, so back to Sanhedrin. have the Gemara here. Any question about the Medrash and the Yerushalmi, the discrepancy between the two? So, we said that the Talmidim that said the Bei Rabbi Shilei Shmoi, Bei Rabbi Karina, and Yanai, it's not just Shemesh Tayarim, they're not just saying that their Rav has the names and tchunas of Mashiach, but rather they're calling the Rav himself Roi Lies Mashiach. The Mefarshim that say Shemesh Tayarim is known as the Marsha, very famous. But there's other Mefarshim that say not only are they saying their Rav has the name of Mashiach, but it is also calling the Rav Mashiach. We know the Pri Tzaddik gives that as Pshat. And the Haggadas Eliyahu also says they're also calling their Rav Mashiach. But also we're going to see Rashi himself holds that not only are the Talmidim saying their Rav has the name of Mashiach, but according to Das Rashi, we're going to see now, Rashi holds they're also calling their Rav Ru'i Lies Mashiach. Where do we see this from? As I pointed out, the Medrash and the Yerushalmi said Stam Menachem Shmoi. And then it gave a Shiur for that opinion from the story of Menachem ben Chizkiah. It was Rabbi Yudin Breder of Ayvud that said Menachem Shmoi. And then the Gemara gave a Shiur to him and told the story of Menachem ben Chizkiah. Here in the Gemara Sanhedrin, fourth line down, second word in, the Yesh Aimrim, there are those who say Menachem ben Chizkiah Shmoi. This is a different girsa, but we're going to see Rashi's girsa. Look at Dibur Hamaskal Menachem. What does Rashi say by Dibur Hamaskal Menachem? Ben Chizkiah. What is Rashi coming to teach us? That the Yesh Aimrim, someone who's saying Menachem Shmoi. The Gemara, the earlier girsas just said Menachem Stam, like Rabbi Yudin Breder of Ayvud. Menachem Stam. But the Yesh Aimrim, it became a Yesh Aimrim. Menachem ben Chizkiah is his name. When you say a name of Mashiach, like Shitas Rashi, Avshar Leimar, Menachem Shmoi ben Chizkiah, not just the name Menachem, the person who has the name. I'm calling him Roi Lies Mashiach. Menachem ben Chizkiah. You're not just saying Shemesh Te'ar, you're actually calling the Rav himself Roi Lies Mashiach. Now, you don't have the Marsha in front of us, so you can look afterwards. But the Marsha has a explanation of Menachem ben Chizkiah, which is similar. He quotes from the Medrash we just learned. He says, Menachem Stam, we know from the pasuk the Feder, Kirachat b'menei Menachem. Menachem, the name we learn from the pasuk itself. Ben Chizkiah, the Marsha says, it's Lo Nukra Mishtama, it's not learned from the pasuk. Elo, so how do they know it's Menachem ben Chizkiah? Kabbalah b'yadam. It was their Messiah. Kabbalah b'yadam. And the Marsha says over there, the Medrash, that the day the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, Noiled Mashiach. Mashiach himself was born. And according to the Agadas Eliyahu, he says Melech HaMashiach was born. The Nisrachek Mibnei Adam LeGan Eden. And he was taken away from people to Gan Eden. Hashat Pshat, with the name Menachem ben Chizkiah, is a man that was born and taken away to Gan Eden. And according to the Agadas Eliyahu, he is in Gan Eden is crying out to bring Moshiach. Hashat Pshat with Menachem ben Chizkiah is a man that was alive and taken away to Gan Eden. There's different explanations where was it the physical Gan Eden, he was taken to the spiritual Gan Eden. But Hashat Pshat is Menachem ben Chizkiah, who is Kabbalah V'Yadam, the Yesh Aimrim. They're waiting for Mashiach, who's not like you and I, who's alive physically. Hashat Pshat is he was in Gan Eden, and this is the Yesh Aimrim. Remember, the Medrash didn't say Yesh Aimrim Menachem ben Chizkiah. It just said Rabbi Yudin Breder of Ayvud Menachem Shmoi. It became a Kabbalah that the day the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, Moshiach was born, the ultimate Redeemer. That when Eibushter is going to bring the Gula, it's going to be Menachem. This was the Kabbalah B'Yadam. Menachem ben Chizkiah was born the day the second Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. This is many hundreds of years before this Gemara was written. So basically, I believe I've covered all the points. What we see from all this is Moshiach min maisim is not just one Amayra Rav who holds Moshiach min maisim. All that Amayra hold Sai Moshiach min Chaim and Sai Moshiach min maisim. And Avshalom, we see real uvdais recorded in the Gemara and the Medrash and the Yerushalmi that Talmidim continued to call the Rav Moshiach even after his Patira. Because they know Mashiach coming to maisim. They had no reason to stop believing the same person who hinted he was Mashiach while he was alive should not be Mashiach when the Eibishter brings the Geula. In fact, the Agadas Eliyahu says, why does a Rav hint to his Talmidim that he is Mashiach? It's actually a vart of Rabbi Yod. We see it from Agadas Eliyahu. He says, in order to show his Talmidim, it's real, it's tangible. Mashiach is among you now, do teshuvah. It's not just an abstract concept. The reason why a Rav will hint strongly he is Mashiach is for a purpose. In order so that Talmidim see the concept is not just an abstract concept, rather it's tangible and they should actually do teshuvah. It's within their reach. And this is what we see from this Gemara in Sanhedrin, we see it from the Yerushalmi, and we see it from the Medrash. A flowing sugya that discusses Mashiach ben Achayim and Mashiach ben maisim and records Talmidim speaking about Mashiach, Sai ben Achayim and Sai ben maisim. Any questions so far? We can go to the Rambam now. Rambam Hilchos Melachim, Perek Yud Aleph, if you can give me one of these. Halacha Dalos. The Rambam codifies, as the Radbaz learns, how to chaydeya, how to establish who is the ultimate redeemer. And the Rambam there, in Perek Yud Aleph, Halacha Dalos, talks about the Askas Mashiach and Vadai Mashiach. So, till now, from the Bavli, Yerushalmi, and Medrash, we see Mashiach becoming a Chaim and Mashiach becoming a maisim. That even while you're in the state of a mace, you're still Ro'i Leis Mashiach, and even while in a state of being a mace, we see Avshalema, the Talmidim continue to say that their Rav is Ro'i Leis Mashiach. Just like they said while their Rabbi was alive, while the Rosh Hashiva was alive, they continue to say while he was in the status of being a mace. So very nice. There's a famous Gemara of Rabbi Yossi HaGlili. It says he would eat chicken and milk together. It's a good preparation Gemara. Are we allowed to do that L'Halacha? Of course not. Because once Halacha is paskin, doesn't matter how many Makaris you have in the Gemara and the Yerushalmi and Medrash, matters Halacha. So we just discussed what is sometimes a controversial topic, Mashiach ben maisim. Question is, very nice, we see Makaris. What did the Rambam say? So, here's a very interesting point from the Rambam. Till now, we were discussing in the Gemara, Ru'ui Li'es Mashiach. Someone who's befitting to be Mashiach. All the Mefarshim that say they were calling the Rav Mashiach didn't mean they're saying he is Malach Mashiach. He didn't build the Beis HaMikdash. He didn't do Kibbutz Galus. He was Ru'ui Li'es Mashiach. Rav said about Rabbeinu Chadash is Ru'ui Li'es Mashiach. Rav says about Daniel is Ru'ui Li'es Mashiach. The question is if Daniel was Kam B'Tchiyah while Rav said that, and Rebbe is still alive, is Daniel more Mashiach than Rebbe? No. He's just as much Ru'ui Li'es Mashiach as Rebbe. Yeshua, it's nice to see you, welcome back. But he's not more Mashiach than Rebbe. Why? Because he didn't do the Simonim of the Rambam. What are the Simonim of the Rambam? Zot the Rambam Halacha Dalad. In Yamaid Malach and Beis David. Ha'iga b'teirav Isaac mitzvahs k'david avin. K'fish teira sheba chsavu.
How is that David Shlomo?
Huh?
How is that?
We'll get there a different time. But we're just going to do the words of the Rambam Pashib Shah. Rambam says, how do you identify the Mashiach? The Rabbis is saying, this halacha is to kaiveya, how to know who Mashiach is la halacha. If you see someone who Beis David, who's a Torah scholar, who does mitzvahs like David, like Teresh V'Shabbat, V'Yachav Kol Yisrael Leilech Ba, Halka, V'Yachav, and he will force the Jews to go in its way. V'Lechazek Bidka, and to strengthen its crafts. V'Yilachem, and he will fight. Milchamas Hashem. Harei Zeh B'Chazka Shu Mashiach. Behold, if you see he is involved in these inyanim, you can assume the Rambam says that he has the chazaka, that he is the Mashiach, that he will be the one to go on. Im asa v'etzliach, if he did these things of Yaakov Kol Yisrael, to do Torah mitzvahs and fight the wars with Hashem, im asa v'etzliach, if he did it, lashon avar asa, so already we see having success in forcing Jews to do mitzvahs, in compelling Jews to do mitzvahs, and fighting the wars of Hashem, being successful in them is already a tail, a part of Vadai Mashiach. Uvana Mikdash B'Chaim, and he needs to also build the Mikdash Lashon Avar in its place, the Kibbutz Nitchei Yisrael, and gather in the dispersed of Israel. If he did all of these things in Lashon Avar, if he did it already, Areizeh Mashiach B'Vadai. He is the Vadai Mashiach. Yisakin Es Ha'olam Kulei L'Aved Es Hashem B'Yachad Shnema Ki Oz Echad El Am Yisrael V'Ror L'Krei Kulam Shem Hashem Rav L'Shkam Echad. It doesn't have the sensor. Do you have one of the photocopies?
Also,
Is this where you
they also have
Okay. I'll tell it to you from what I know. So we see to be B'Cheskas Mashiach, you don't need to force every single Jew to do Torah mitzvahs, and you don't need to beat all the goyim. It's just enough that you're involved in it. The Yachai, he is involved. Thank you very much. He is involved in it. He didn't complete it yet. He completed it. That's already a bechina, a simon of Vadai Mashiach. Right. Thank you very much. The Im Leitzlich Adchai. But if he was not matzliach to do these things of Yaakov the Yilchem, or Neharad, or he was killed, behold, he is not the one that the Torah promised. So who is he? Is he a fraud? Dr. Rambam, no, he's not a fraud. He's like all the kings of the house of David who were Shalom and we see here from this halacha, the Rambam is only dealing with Zeh Sheheticha Allah Torah, who the Torah promises on him. The Rambam is codifying how to tell who is the ultimate redeemer. Ru'il's Moshiach is not the fall talked about by the Rambam.
So what's the Chesed Mashiach? Is the first part in the actual person.
The Chesed Mashiach is someone who is Ru'il's Mashiach. He's someone who is Eiger Peter, maisim mitzvahs. That's who you know who is Ru'il's Mashiach. Ru'il's Mashiach, who starts to do the pu'ulis of the Chesed Mashiach, of Yaakov the Milchaim, Arizeh the Chesed Shel Mashiach. If he's involved in doing compelling Yidden, it could be the Devarim, and it could be physical, it could be spiritual, as I write in my conscious, I quote Makaris. Behold the Chesed Shel Mashiach, which means as follows. Like I said, if Daniel would come back with Chia after Rav said Daniel could be Moshiach and maisim, and Rebbe's still alive, if Daniel's coming to Chia, is he more Moshiach than Rebbe? No. Why not? He didn't do the Simonim. Rambam said in Igras Tchias HaMeisim, Ois Vav, that the Eibishter can do a Tchia anytime he wants, to anyone he wants, in the days of Mashiach, Oy Lafana, or before Mashiach comes. After Mashiach dies, Rambam holds Mashiach will die. Like Shitas Rambam, the Eibishter can make a Tchia anytime he wants, to whoever wants, even before Mashiach. Oy Bezoy. If the Eibishter wants to make a Tchia and bring back Lamerzog and Daniel will start to do the Simonim over here of Yaakov the Yilchaim, will the Rambam rule he's not the Cheskas Mashiach? Of course the Rambam will rule he's doing the Simonim, he's really Mashiach, he's now doing the Simonim, he is now the Cheskas Mashiach. Zet men vas, L'Halacha. The Rambam never ruled out Mashiach men maisim L'Halacha. And that's a big chiddush. Ru'ui Lies Mashiach has no Gedner in Halach in the Rambam. Just like the Sar HaTorah and the Pesach HaDer. These are all the Shonos from Chazal. These are all the Shonos. Kol Yisrael is Shagah B'Fif Kol Yisrael. But the Sar HaTorah and the Pesach HaDer, there's no special halachas in the Rambam. The code for their quasi-status is the same as a Talmud Chacham and Hilchas Talmud Torah. He comes into the room, you have to stand up. He has no special halachas or halachic status associated with being a Sar HaTorah, other than your Talmud Chacham. So too, the Roi Leis Mashiach, it's a gather from Chazal and Rishonim, but it has no special halachic gather, which means as follows: if the Eibishter will make a Tchias HaMeisim, like the Rambam holds that the Eibishter can do this even before Mashiach comes, and he'll do, and it's explained in the Likutei Sichos that a limited mace is not considered a Shinui B'Teva. It's not a contradiction to Olam Kinu Min Hagei Naivi. if the Eibush would choose to bring from the maisim someone who's really Moshiach, for instance Daniel, and then Daniel comes back and starts to do Yachas Kol Yisrael.
Wasn't already Chas Moshiach before he passed away?
No, of course not.
We'll get there. If Daniel would,
It said Hagib and it says you're going to be smarter
that's who you have to be.
smarter than Shlomo in the Rambam.
That's Vadai Mashiach. Vadai Mashiach has to be a Gresser Chacham from Shlomo Melech and a Navi Gadol Karev L'Moshe Rabbeinu. That's Vadai Mashiach.
How about
not a Cheskes.
Hagib
To be Roi Leis Mashiach, you have to be Hagib L'Teiro. You have to be a tzaddik. A chassid gomer, the salad lucerin.
You said you don't have to stand up for him. You said, is it Talmud?
You have to stand up for Talmud. But there's no special halacha. There's no hilchas sar hatayr. There's no hilchas paisa kader. It's koilel in hilchas Talmud Torah that your Talmud Chacham stand up to you. So someone who's ready to Mashiach, there's no halachic gather. The only halachic gather the Rambam talks about how to kaideh who is the ultimate redeemer. Zeh shehivticha alav hatayr. On him, how to identify the ultimate redeemer. Rui Leis Mashiach has no gather in halacha. You're Rui Leis Mashiach Simon Achayim, and you're Rui Leis Mashiach Min HaMaisim. But you're not the Rambam's Becheskas Mashiach unless you're doing the Simonim. So therefore, if the Eibusher would make a Chiyah practice for a tzaddik, the Rambam didn't rule against it. And if this tzaddik now has come to Chiyah, he's still not Mashiach. But if he does the Simonim of Yaakov Kal Yisrael Leilech Bavli, and to do a Yilcham Melchamas Hashem, sure the Rambam will rule he is Becheskas Mashiach. So we see the Rambam did not rule out Mashiach Min HaMaisim L'Halacha. Now you're all wondering, so what happens to a Becheskas Mashiach? What happens to a tzaddik who Taka gets to the level of Becheskas Mashiach? The Rambam says, how does he lose his status? Two ways. If he is not successful or killed. Let me ask you a question. If the Rambam didn't write Oy Neharag and Becheskas Mashiach, and he just wrote if the Rambam would not have written the words Oy Neharag and someone who was Becheskas Mashiach was taka killed, would you still say he has his chazak as Becheskas Mashiach? No, you would say it's Koilo in Leitzliach. He's not successful. He was just killed. There's nothing less successful than getting killed in a war. So Oy Bazoy, my question to you is, why does he say Aynara? It's miyutar, right? Why is the Rambam being mafaret Aynara? If he wouldn't have written the words Aynara, Mashiach was taka killed, you would say he's not Becheskas Mashiach anymore because he's not successful.
You have somebody whose school is continuing after he passed away.
What?
You have somebody who his school is continuing after he passed away.
I'm gonna talk about that right now. Exactly. As we know, so why does the Rambam say Aynara? What is he coming to teach us? That he is compelled to write Aynara. What is he coming to teach that we would not have learned had he not been mafaret the words Aynara, which l'chura a miyuter. Elamai, like we just said, Mashiach can come in a chai, Mashiach can come in a maisim. If Mashiach dies, terrible thing. But you're not less Mashiach just because you die. Mashiach is allowed to die. It's not paisal you from being Mashiach. And if you are Becheskas Mashiach, Misa in and of itself is not paisal you. Because who is there? Rambam is a paisik halacha. There was an argument in the Gemara. One Amir says Azoy, another Amir says Azoy, and a third Amir says even different. The Rambam has to be paskin like one of them on Matavech. What's the halacha? Did anyone in the Gemara argue, say, no, Mashiach cannot come in a maisim? There was not one Amir that says Mashiach in a chayim and Mashiach in a maisim is not a possibility. The Rambam knows Mashiach can come in a maisim. So Misa in and of itself doesn't paisal you to be the Cheskas Mashiach if you reach that level of the Cheskas Mashiach. However, if you die and they forget about you, then for sure you become a Lo Yitzliach Ad Koi. But if you die and they're still doing your p'ulas that you told them to do, for instance, Mashiach over here, Pashup is fighting a war. If you're fighting a war, you have soldiers. So if the soldiers say, they're from a Yidden, they see this is the Cheskas Mashiach, they're trying to fight him. If they say, well, the Cheskas Mashiach was taka killed, But we know Mashiach coming on maisim, and we know, like the Katsas HaChayshin holds, the Rambam holds, Shlichus she'acher misas hamashlech is still considered shlichus, which is a very minority opinion. There's also, the Rambam knows, of Shimshon HaGibber, that says in the Yerushalmi that Shimshon HaGibber was still continued, the leader of his generation, for 20 years after he passed away, because of his hashpa'ah was continuing. That even though Shimshon HaGibber passed away, it says in the Yerushalmi, his hashpa'ah was still felt in the world, that the Philistine didn't start up with the Yidden for 20 years because of his hashpa'ah, so therefore he was the leader of the generation. So the soldiers are going to say, okay, we're going to continue the fight either as shluchim, or because of hashpa'ah, and therefore the Becheskas Mashiach was just killed, is still going to be the Becheskas Mashiach, because we're going to continue the fight. Paskin the Rambam name, Darf the Rambam Zagan, Oy Neharat, Bavarn Azaf Fal. The Rambam has to be mafaret this case of soldiers continuing to fight the war after the Becheskas Mashiach is killed in war, to say Oy Neharat is no good. Because it's a type of loy hitzliach. Why does Rambam use the word hitzliach? There's a pasuk in Shmoi HaNavi that says after David was nimshach, he became an ishmatzliach. To be Mashiach means you're anointed. Anything you do, you have to show hatzlacha. If you get killed in war, it's a type of loy hitzliach, obviously. So it's not kailo im loy hitzliach kai because of the fal I just said that the soldiers will continue. Therefore, the Rambam has to possibly say, nay, Oy Nehara, he needs to be mafar, Oy Nehara, to bavarn that case, that soldiers will continue. But Misa Stam, if you
continuously can't accomplish what the purpose is to be killed, something that needs to continue.
the Chaskas Mashiach constantly needs to show hatzlach in anything he does.
I'm saying, is there any point that it stops? What, for instance, not that it stops happening, but Yahweh Yisrael, the Chazal Bidka, and all that, and so everyone else
as long as the Chaskas Mashiach is oisem in the pa'ulas of doing Yaakov the Yilchem, he has his chazak. In Leitzliach, if the soldiers say, we don't want to fight anymore, it's too hard, we don't want to do it, or the people who are doing Torah mitzvahs say, we don't want to keep Torah mitzvahs anymore, is Leitzliach. No, it's done till his vada Mashiach. But if he's constantly doing Yaakov the Yilchem in a way that's showing constant hatzlacha, like there inside the chazaka, he keeps his chazaka. I'm saying the Cheskas Mashiach can't be Misa in and of itself, doesn't mafateya the chazaka of the Cheskas Mashiach.
What's the Rambam's marker that Harigo is a problem?
It's
Misa's not.
It's a Gemara in Sukkah that talks about Hariga of Mashiach Ben Yosef, I believe. But the point is, as you see by Bar Kokhba, Kivan Sheneharag Noida She'ena in Halacha Gimel. The Rambam says he was killed. Why doesn't it say Kivan Shames? Story over. Ad Shenarag Bavainas. The story was he was killed by Avainas. Story over. Zal Rambam. Kivan Shenarag Noida She'ena. Because he was killed, it's known he's not Mashiach. Why did the Rambam say Kivan Shames? Because the Rambam knows Mashiach can come in on maisim. Mace in and of itself is not taking away the ability to be thought of as Mashiach, especially if you reach the Madriga of Cheskas Mashiach. Misa in and of itself doesn't take away the Chazak. But if you die and you're forgotten about and no one follows in your path and does, then you fall into.
Why is it less of Atzlacha?
Then you fall into if you die, then you could fall into then you lose your Chazak of the Cheskas Mashiach. What's the question?
Why is it less of a tzliach?
Why is what?
Misa, Nereg less of a tzliach than Misa.
If you're fighting a war and you're the king and you get killed, that's a sign of loy hitzliach. If you play a game of chess and your king is killed, it's game over. So the Rambam is paskening on halacha. If the king is killed, even if the soldiers continue fighting, you're not the Cheskas Mashiach, because that no greater sign of being not matzliach than being killed in the war. So it says Oinera.
And if the king dies without being killed, and the soldiers continue fighting,
So he
so
died
it's
in Misa Tivis?
yeah.
Okay, let me step back. We're talking about halacha over here. Now, are you familiar with something called Chalav Yisrael and Chalav Stam? The marker for Chalav Stam is we hold, Ein Yisrael Re'ehu, right? A Yid has to see the Chaliva. Some people hold Chalav Stam. They say it's Genug that the government puts fear on them, so it's as if Anan Sadi. That's how they hold. Do we hold like that? No. Meaning as follows. When you talk about halacha lamaisa, there's different opinions. Everything I'm saying is called a halachic opinion. Lav dafka does the whole oilam have to follow my halachic opinion or other people's halachic opinion to echo this way of understanding the Rambam. Just like any other halach. You ever heard, I asked Rabbi Hella in Kodesh, is it mutter to make ice on Shabbos? He answers me, some say it's mutter, some say it's asa. So I said, but Rabbi, what's the halach? He repeats it again. Some say it's mutter, some say it's asa. When you're talking about halacha lamaisa, everyone's looking at the same text. Everyone's looking at the same words. Each one has a different interpretation. What I'm saying now, I should have prefaced before, is a halachic interpretation. It is not binding on anyone, but it is what's known as a halachic opinion. Also, yesh al malismai, just like any other halachic opinion. Does that answer your question? Some people hold, some people hold that Cheskas Moshiach has to beat people up with sticks, forcing them to do Torah mitzvahs. Some people say it has to be real wars, it has to be a fight. But some people say, no, the Devarim, you can do, Kifa is still called force, even with words. There's Makayers in Shas and Taisus that say Kifa forcing is considered force, even with words, without the stick. Wars can be spiritual wars, or wars can be fought like David HaMelech. That Yoav would go fight, and David HaMelech would sit and learn, and through that it's considered David's fighting. So some people say, no, it means real wars, it means real force. So it's a machlekas hapaiskin, you understand? Who's right, who's wrong? It's like making ice on Shabbos. How you paskin, that's the way it is. But no one is chas v'shalom doing something aser, but making ice on Shabbos. That's how they hold. You understand? It's a halachic gather, and it should be understood exactly from that perspective.
The mucker that of the Psul Hariga is from Bar Kochba?
No. Well, yes, I beg your pardon. The story of Bar Kochba.
How do you know Bar Kochba wasn't actually Moshiach? Maybe Bar Kochba was.
Okay, so look inside.
And it's a late flip.
If you look at the maisim of the Rambam over here by Bar Kochba on the word Ad Shenari Vaynos, Bar Kochba was killed for sins. Some people say Bar Kochba sinned and therefore was killed. If you sin, you're not really Moshiach anymore.
Well, that's
Not that, but there's different opinions. So I'm saying it's all a halakhic opinion. Now it's in the world of halakha, you're right, and you're right. You can't say, oh, you're wrong, get out. No, it's a halakha, and it should be respected and viewed from that perspective. Now, with regard to Bar Kochba, the story is brought only to teach you that the Rambam holds Moshiach doesn't have to do with Oises and maisim. Has nothing to do with the Cheskas Moshiach, as the Radbaz points out. The Rambam's criteria of the Cheskas Moshiach, as the Radbaz points out, is from Medrashim and various other Makayers. It's not from Bar Kochba. So, the fact that the Rambam touches off Ein Nerag not necessarily has to do with per se Bar Kochba, because Bar Kochba was a Nerag. Now,
according to them, Bar Kochba was probably killed by the Romans.
Yeah, how do the Romans get to him? There's a machlekes. Go look at the nice account.
Big
Here's
time.
the deal. The Rambam's talking about Zeh Sheheticha Allah HaTayr, the ultimate redeemer. Before you were the ultimate redeemer, what were you? You were Ru'ui Leis Mashiach. If there's the case, the Rambam says you could be the Cheskas Mashiach, and Chas Sham, you could end up Leitzlech HaKay Nerag. What are you after Chas Sham, you're Neherag? The Rambam says, you are like all the previous kings of the house of David who are Shalem and Kasher that died. If you are from a Beis David and you're a Kasher Shalem and you're Mace, what are you?
You're going.
You're Ra'ui Lies Mashiach. But the Rambam is not talking about you because evidently, if you didn't do this, you are not Zeh Sheheticha Allah HaTayra. Could you come back? Could the Eibishter choose this person to come back? There's nothing in the Rambam that says that the Eibishter is now apostle from picking this person to come back again and have a go at it. But he's not the Rambam's Becheskas Mashiach. For sure he's not the Rambam's Becheskas Mashiach. But the Rambam's halacha is only codifying how to identify who the ultimate redeemer is. The Rambam is not talking about Ru'i Leis Mashiach whatsoever. You Ru'i Leis Mashiach Simon Achayim, and you Ru'i Leis Mashiach and a maisim. And Efshar Laimar, it's a halachic argument, you can still be Becheskas Mashiach while in a status of mace if you have shluchim who are continuing to act under your hashpah of doing Yachloch V'Yilchaim, which is how you got your status to begin with. Because how does one man force all Jews to do Torah mitzvahs? How does one man fight a war? Elamai, you need to have shluchim, or soldiers, or people acting on your behalf, doing it under your hashpah. So a halachic argument can be made that someone could be still considered Becheskas Mashiach while he's in the status of mace, for as long as he has not fallen into a Lehitzliach, or he wasn't killed, it's not shach to be killed, but as long as he hasn't fallen into a status of Lehitzliach, Afshar Leima, you can make a halachic argument that the person can still be considered Becheskas Mashiach. And what would need to happen? You would need to come back to Techiyah and continue. There's nothing in the Shittas Rambam that prevents that from happening. As we said, the Rambam in Eivrei Techiyah Maisim, Oisbav says the Eivrei can make Techiyah anytime he wants to, whoever he wants, even before Moshiach comes. So there's nothing wrong with saying someone is Ru'i Leis Mashiach or Becheskas Mashiach. If they were Becheskas Mashiach while they were alive, the question is, if they die in Misa Tibbis, did they become a Lehitzliach? If they became a Lehitzliach, Ein Hachanami, they are not Becheskas Mashiach anymore. What are they? They fell back to what they were always, Ru'i Leis Mashiach. So it is a halachic debate, just like making ice on Shabbos. That's it. Any questions?
Where's Gemara and Sota you're talking about?
I have to look it up, I'll get you the number.
And Stam, based on what you were just saying about Chesed Mashiach keeping his status after he passes away, say that Dvei or Shel, Dvei this, even after they passed away, if he has a Dvei that's still calling his name, or still pushing to do whatever he did, because I'm pretty sure Shela didn't have an army.
Didn't have an army.
So
I do not believe Rabbi Shela, Rabbi Yana, Rabbi Chanina reached the Rambam Becheskas Mashiach.
So they were
Because it's
talking
not
about
proven from the Gemara that they were Makarev Kol, were involved in Kiruv of Kol Yisrael. They were involved in the yeshiva. Right? You can be the greatest tzaddik on the world, but it doesn't necessarily make you Becheskas Mashiach. And not being Becheskas Mashiach doesn't take who has a hisaskus with his yeshiva could be the greatest guy. He could be the Sarah Torah. It's great. But you're not the Becheskas Mashiach until you're involved in Kiruv Kol Yisrael and you're involved in fighting the wars of Hashem. So the Sliach is already part of Vadai Mashiach. You understand that? The stuff I just said about the Rambam mostly is from Rabbi Volpa's Barim Yichya Malach and Yichya Malach Mashiach, and also from Rabbi Heller's Sefer Hilchos Mashiach. That's where I got most of my stuff about the Rambam. When I said, why does the Rambam say Oy Neharag? It's Miyutra, that's my only Kiddush on the Rambam. Any questions?
I heard people say, no.